It has now been over 6 weeks since Lynette Hooker vanished without a trace in the crystal waters of the Bahamas, and this case has just exploded into a full-scale criminal investigation. In a dramatic move that changed everything, the U.S. Coast Guard seized the couple's sailboat Soulmate 40 nautical miles off the Florida coast. Federal agents launched a coordinated surveillance operation, intercepted the vessel, and when it mysteriously lost engine power, they towed it straight into Fort Pierce. Once there, they wrapped the entire boat in crime scene tape. This is no longer being treated as a simple accident. This is now an active criminal probe, and authorities are acting like they know something the public doesn't. According to Brian Hooker, on the evening of April 4th, he and Lynette were heading back to their sailboat Soulmate in a small dinghy after dinner in Hope Town. He claims rough weather hit suddenly, Lynette bounced overboard, and the strong currents carried her away into the darkness. He says he searched desperately, but eventually paddled ashore, arriving around 4 a.m. the next morning. On paper, it sounds like a tragic boating accident, the kind that happens in unpredictable seas. But from the very first hours, locals who know those waters better than anyone began calling the story into question. The area near Elbow Cay is not the wild open ocean with deadly riptides. In many places, it's surprisingly shallow, protected, and the kind of water where an experienced swimmer like Lynette could have stood up or reached safety quickly. Lynette wasn't some inexperienced tourist. She was living her dream, full-time on that sailboat. She had poured her heart, creativity, and savings into Soulmate. She sewed custom covers for the boat with her own hands, practiced yoga on deck at sunrise, and embraced the adventurous life she had always wanted. So how does a strong, active woman simply disappear in relatively calm conditions near shore? That question is now at the center of a serious federal investigation. New details emerging from the Coast Guard's actions are raising even more alarms. They didn't casually board the boat, they tracked it from the air, used surface assets for surveillance, and moved in with purpose. The language in their official statements is careful but telling. They repeatedly call it an ongoing criminal investigation, not a missing person case or search and rescue. That single phrase speaks volumes. Right now, forensic teams are processing every inch of the Soulmate, looking for blood, DNA, signs of struggle, digital evidence, GPS data, and anything that contradicts Brian's account. The boat sat in the Bahamas for weeks, yet they still seized it aggressively. That suggests investigators believe critical answers are still hidden somewhere inside it. What happened in those critical hours after Lynette vanished? Why did Brian reportedly search for only a short time before returning to the sailboat and staying there for nearly 24 hours while his wife was still missing? These early contradictions have left Lynette's family and the entire true crime community demanding answers. The paradise that Lynette chased has turned into something far darker, and the investigation is only just beginning to peel back the layers. But the deeper you look into Brian Hooker's version of events, the more cracks begin to appear. According to a friend who spoke out recently, Brian only actively searched for Lynette for about 3 to 4 hours before returning to the Soulmate and staying on the boat for nearly 24 hours while his wife was still missing in the water. 24 hours. That detail has left many people stunned. If the love of your life disappears into the sea, wouldn't you be out there until your body gave out? Wouldn't every minute feel like pure torture? Yet Brian reportedly sat on the sailboat, almost waiting, as search teams continued their work around him. Even more disturbing is what Lynette's own daughter, Carly, has revealed. 2 years before this tragedy, during a heated breakup, Brian allegedly threatened Lynette in the most chilling way possible. He reportedly told her he would choke her out and throw her overboard where no one would ever find her. Lynette confided this terrifying threat to her daughter. She described how Brian had physically hurt her and made it clear he could make her disappear forever. Those words now hang over this entire case like a dark shadow. Carly says the moment she heard her mother was missing, her mind went straight back to those threats. She never believed the accident story, not even for a second. What makes this even harder is understanding who Lynette really was. She was a vibrant, free-spirited woman who finally found the courage to live her dream. She had always wanted to live on a sailboat and sail the Caribbean. Soulmate wasn't just a boat to her, it was her freedom, her adventure, her new chapter. She sewed beautiful custom biminis and window covers with her own hands. She woke up to do yoga on the deck. She explored new islands with excitement and ran along beaches whenever she could. People who met her described her smile as magnetic, the kind that made you feel instantly warm. And now that smile is gone, and her family is left fighting for answers in a nightmare they never saw coming. After the disappearance, Brian told the world his only focus was finding Lynette. He posted emotional messages, saying he would stay in the Bahamas until she was found. But within days of being released from 5 days in Bahamian custody, he left the islands and returned to the United States. The boat that Lynette had mostly paid for and loved so deeply was left behind and later brought back by someone else. These actions have deeply hurt Carly and the rest of Lynette's family. They see a man who claimed to be heartbroken, yet moved on suspiciously fast. Meanwhile, serious questions about the conditions that night continue to grow. Brian described rough seas and high winds that threw Lynette from the dinghy. But locals and people familiar with the waters near Elbow Cay say the conditions that evening were not nearly as dangerous as he claimed. In many spots, the water is shallow enough to stand. An experienced swimmer and sailor like Lynette should have had a real chance to reach safety or at least stay afloat until help arrived. So why didn't she? These contradictions, the past threats, the limited search effort, and the sudden departure have turned this from a missing person case into something far more sinister in the eyes of investigators and the public. The U.S. Coast Guard clearly agrees. Their decision to seize the Soulmate and treat it as a crime scene suggests they are hunting for hard evidence that could prove what really happened that dark night. As the investigation tightens, Lynette's daughter Carly has become one of the most powerful voices demanding the truth. In her conversations with investigators and journalists, Carly has painted a picture that is both heartbreaking and deeply disturbing. She says that when she first heard her mother was missing, the very first thought that flashed through her mind was Brian's previous threats. According to Carly, 2 years earlier during a bad fight, Brian had told Lynette he would choke her and throw her body overboard, so no one would ever find her. Those words were not said in the heat of a normal argument, they were repeated, and they left Lynette terrified enough to leave him temporarily. Yet somehow, she went back to the boat and the relationship. Like so many victims of controlling partners, she held on to the hope that things could get better. Carly describes her mother as someone full of life and adventure. Lynette loved the freedom of a sailboat. She was crafty, creative, and always working on Soulmate, sewing blue window covers, making custom biminis for other boaters, staying active with yoga and exercise even in the middle of the ocean. She wasn't the type to panic easily in water. She was a strong swimmer who had faced rough conditions before. That's why Carly and many locals find Brian's story almost impossible to believe. The waters near Elbow Cay that night were not the deadly storm he described. Multiple people familiar with the area say the conditions were manageable, and in several places, the water was shallow enough that Lynette could have simply stood up. What has shocked many is Brian's behavior in the critical first 48 hours. After reportedly searching for just a few hours, he returned to the Soulmate and stayed aboard for nearly a full day while search and rescue teams were still looking for her mother. He gave very few additional details to authorities and appeared strangely calm for a man whose wife had just vanished. Later, despite publicly saying he would never leave the Bahamas until Lynette was found, he left the islands shortly after being released from 5 days in custody. That sudden departure deeply hurt Carly. She says she hasn't spoken to him since that night and has no desire to. The man who had been in her life since she was 4 years old, the man she once saw as another parent, is now at the center of her worst nightmare. The U.S. Coast Guard's aggressive actions have given the family a small sense of hope. By seizing the Soulmate and declaring it an active criminal investigation, federal agents are clearly looking for physical evidence. They are examining the boat for signs of struggle, blood evidence, DNA, the condition of the dinghy, electronic data, and any GPS or communication records that might contradict Brian's timeline. The fact that they tracked the boat from the air and used multiple assets shows this is a high-priority case. Forensic processing is happening right now in Fort Pierce, and sources say more developments are expected in the coming weeks. Across the internet, the true crime community has exploded with theories and questions. Why did the engine of a Soulmate mysteriously fail during the Coast Guard operation? Was it just bad luck or something more? Why did Brian leave the search so quickly? And most importantly, if Lynette really fell overboard, why has not a single trace of her been found despite extensive searches? These unanswered questions are keeping thousands of people glued to every new update. Many are now openly saying what Carly has believed from the beginning: this was never an accident. The emotional weight of this case grows heavier with every passing day. Mother's Day recently passed, and Lynette's birthday was just before it. For Carly and her family, these dates have been pure pain. They are still waiting for answers, still hoping for justice, and still refusing to let Lynette's story disappear like she did that night. The paradise Lynette dreamed of has become a dark mystery, and the man who shared that dream with her is now under the microscope of a serious federal investigation. The more investigators dig into this case, the more the psychological picture of Brian Hooker becomes deeply troubling. Those who knew the couple describe him as a man with two very different sides. On the outside, he could be charming, talkative, and outgoing, the kind of person who easily made friends in every port. But behind closed doors, according to Lynette's own accounts to her daughter, he was controlling, quick to anger, and capable of serious violence. The threat he allegedly made 2 years ago to choke Lynette and dump her body in the ocean where no one would ever find her now feels chillingly prophetic. It wasn't just words said in anger. It was a detailed plan, and now almost exactly that scenario has played out. One of the biggest red flags in this investigation is the timeline itself. Brian claimed the incident happened around 7:30 p.m. in rough weather and high winds. Yet multiple locals and weather reports from that evening near Elbow Cay describe conditions that were far from extreme. The waters in that area are known to be relatively protected and shallow in many spots. An experienced sailor and swimmer like Lynette should have had a fighting chance. This contradiction has led many experts and armchair investigators to ask a terrifying question: did Lynette actually go into the water that night at all? Or did something far more violent happen on or near the Soulmate before the story was created? Another major inconsistency involves Brian's search efforts. After only a few hours of searching, he reportedly returned to the sailboat and remained there for almost 24 hours while Lynette was still missing. He gave limited new details to search teams and appeared strangely composed. Then, despite his emotional Facebook posts saying his sole focus was finding Lynette and that he would never leave the Bahamas, he departed the islands shortly after being released from custody. These actions have left Lynette's family and thousands following the case wondering, if he was truly innocent and heartbroken, why did his behavior look so different from his words? Right now, the Soulmate sits at the Coast Guard station in Fort Pierce, wrapped in crime scene tape. Federal agents are conducting a thorough forensic examination. They are looking at everything: possible blood evidence, fingerprints, signs of a struggle, the condition of the dinghy, phone records, GPS data, and any digital footprints that could prove where Brian and Lynette really were that night. The fact that the Coast Guard used aviation surveillance and a full interdiction operation to seize the boat shows they are taking this extremely seriously. This is not a routine check. This is a targeted criminal investigation. Across social media and true crime forums, the public reaction has been intense. Thousands of people are sharing Lynette's smiling photos, demanding justice, and pointing out every hole in Brian's story. Many believe this was a calculated murder made to look like an accident, a crime of opportunity in one of the most isolated places possible. Others point to the pattern of domestic control and the isolation of boat life, where there are no neighbors, no security cameras, and nowhere easy to escape. The internet has kept this case alive, refusing to let it fade away like so many maritime disappearances. For Carly, every new update brings a painful mix of hope and heartbreak. She wants the Coast Guard and FBI to examine every inch of that boat. She wants to know if her mother suffered, if she fought back, and most importantly, where her body is so she can finally bring her home. The not knowing is torture. Mother's Day and Lynette's birthday have come and gone, leaving an empty space that no one can fill until the truth surfaces. The deeper this investigation goes, the darker it becomes. What started as a dream sailing adventure in paradise has turned into one of the most suspicious disappearance cases in recent years. And all eyes are now on what the forensic evidence from the Soulmate will finally reveal. As this investigation enters its 7th week, the pressure on Brian Hooker is growing heavier by the day. The U.S. Coast Guard continues its silent but intense work on the Soulmate in Fort Pierce. Forensic teams are examining every corner of the boat that once represented Lynette's greatest dream. They are searching for the smallest traces, a drop of blood, A strand of hair, defensive wounds on the dinghy, deleted messages, or GPS data that doesn't match Brian's story. The fact that federal agents used aviation surveillance and a full-scale interdiction to seize the vessel suggests they already have strong reasons to doubt the official accident narrative. Every new piece of evidence they uncover could be the one that finally breaks this case wide open. Psychologically, this case fits a dark and familiar pattern. A controlling relationship, isolation at sea, and a husband who allegedly made specific threats about making his wife disappear exactly the way she did. Living full-time on a sailboat can become a perfect trap. No neighbors to hear screams, no cameras, no easy way to escape when things turn violent. Lynette had tried to leave once, but like so many victims, she returned hoping for change. Her dream became her prison. Now her daughter Carly carries the unbearable weight of wondering whether her mother's final moments were filled with fear and betrayal at the hands of the man she once trusted. There are still so many unanswered questions that refuse to go away. Why did Brian search for only a few hours before stopping? Why did he stay on the boat for nearly 24 hours while his wife was missing? How do the calm weather reports from that night match his description of deadly rough seas? And most haunting of all, if Lynette really fell overboard in shallow, protected waters near Elbow Cay, why has absolutely nothing been found? No clothing, no phone, no sign of her despite massive searches. These gaps have led many to believe that Lynette may never have gone into the water that night at all. The internet has refused to let the story die. True crime communities across YouTube, Reddit, and TikTok are dissecting every detail, sharing Lynette's beautiful smiling photos and keeping constant pressure on authorities. People are emotionally invested because Lynette represents something universal, a woman who finally chased her dream of freedom, only to vanish at the hands of the person closest to her. Carly's courage in speaking out has touched millions. Her pain is raw, especially after passing Mother's Day and Lynette's birthday without any answers. The family just wants one thing: the truth and a place to lay Lynette to rest. Brian Hooker has still not been charged with any crime. He continues to maintain that this was a tragic accident. But with a federal criminal investigation actively processing the Soulmate, the walls may be closing in. Sources close to the case suggest more significant developments could come in the coming weeks as forensic results return. At its core, this case is a heartbreaking reminder of how dangerous the wrong relationship can become. Lynette Hooker was not lost to the sea. She was lost to a situation that should have been her happiest chapter. A woman who sewed her own boat covers, did yoga at sunrise, and smiled so brightly that strangers still feel connected to her. Her life was stolen in paradise, and the person who was supposed to protect her is now the prime focus of suspicion. The Soulmate sits quietly now under crime scene tape, but its silence may not last much longer. Soon, the evidence locked inside those decks could finally speak for Lynette. Until then, her daughter waits, the public watches, and one chilling question hangs over everything. How many more secrets will be revealed when that boat finally gives up the truth? Lynette's smile still lives in our minds. Her story is not over. And somewhere in the depths of this investigation, the answers are waiting to surface, no matter how dark they may be.